What is going on, Rotogrinders? I'm your host, Dean. That's Dean78904. That is the daily fantasy handle around the industry. We're talking NFL. This is the NFL Pick Six show, of course. Week 4. We made it to week 4. This is how the show works, folks. We talk about three main games on the main slate, and then we branch out. Our favorite parts of that game, we'll dice it up in all sorts of ways and all sorts of angles. And then how that works is that we run it back. We say, which quarterbacks do we not talk about in those three games? Which running backs do we not talk about in those three games? Receivers, tight ends that we happen to like as well. So we're throwing out the Jacksonville-Cincinnati game. We're not talking about that. Tampa Bay and New England, the only show it's not going to be talking about that one. I don't know if you guys heard. Rich Hribar, of course, joins me. John Daigle joins me. Rich, you've heard, Tom Brady, the quarterback of Tampa currently.
Who's that?
He is going to go be playing in New England this weekend against the team he used to play for, New England. It's going to be wild on Sunday Night Football. Have you heard this story? They're not really talking about it much.
I don't know, man. Someone should make some kind of advertisement with Adele to kind of hype it up.
By the way, that is the perfect song for it, though. Props to whoever's working at NBC. Good job. I'm watching the game either way. You don't have to sell me on it. I want to play the showdown slate. It's good times for sure. You guys should know at this point, it's Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis and John Daigle. John Daigle, from NBC Sports and a good football show, the podcast. Daigle, how are things in your world? Are we all good?
Yeah, you said we made it to week 4. We barely made it to week 4. We're still going along here.
Are you on fumes right now?
Only 14 more weeks left. No big deal. But yeah, we're coming off a very good week. We discussed the Justin Herbert double stack and the pick'em pool that is FanDuel that went nuts last week. That was pretty much like the key to unlocking everything else. You pretty much took down everything if you also solo played Emmanuel Sanders with that stack. So coming off a very good week. Hopefully we can carry it over into this one.
Yeah, it was I didn't take everything down, but it was a profitable week for me for sure. And I'm not positive for the season as well. Week 1 didn't go so great. Week 2 was kind of a push. Week 3 went very well for me. So looking forward to week 4. This should be a good one. Do you have any overall assessments, overall thoughts, Hribar, is before we kind of break, dig into the first game? We're going to talk about just the overall slate thoughts.
For this week, no, nothing particular. There's not a lot of huge standout games for me. It's more scattershot. Usually there's a bunch of games that I want to stack and kind of work around that. But things are a little more scattered this week. I think there's a lot of really good individual plays all over the board.
And I do think that we have 2 games over 51.5 totals in the afternoon slate. So it's, again, another spot where you can leave a couple spots as placeholders in order to late swap if you play on DK or those kind of contests in FanDuel and get an edge later on with the information you gain from the first slate.
Yeah, and who knows? This is Wednesday night. We're recording right now on a Wednesday. You guys a lot of people watch this on the rewind. They watch it on the record. They watch it. They listen to it on their RG podcast feed. They listen to it on YouTube as well. If you hear us say something like on Friday, that doesn't make any sense. Probably it's because something's changed. We don't know about Henderson's status as of right now, right? That's kind of sort of up in the air. So we're going to dig into that Rams game in a second. We'll talk about that soon enough. Actually, that's the second game. The first game, hey, Hribar, it is your Cleveland Browns at Minnesota. That's the first game we're featuring right out the gate. That should tell you what you think about the slate for sure. There's a couple throwaway games too. 13 games, but some of them were kind of some snoozers for sure. Cleveland at Minnesota, 51.5. That is a pretty big total. And this one also has one of the running backs we're not really certain about, Dalvin Cook, if he's going to play, if he's not going to play. Obviously, some implications in this game. Hribar, your thoughts as far as Minnesota, and start with Minnesota. And I guess you want to start with Cook. What's to say? If Cook doesn't play, Madison all of a sudden becomes interesting.
Yeah, this game's got both these teams have pretty high totals. It's not just a high total where it's one side. The spread's only 1.5 in this game too. So I mean, it's high and tight, like Dean, like you like them.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how we're gonna roll this one. It's interesting. It's gonna be the bootleg left bowl. Both the quarterbacks. This is the only two offenses that actually run bootleg left. Well, Carolina does too. Sam Darnold actually is tied in bootleg left attempts as well. So if you're a big fan of bootleg left, you'll see it in this game. I know that's a great way to start the show, but yeah, I mean, Cleveland is a real interesting spot here because Minnesota's defense has not been really good at all. They're good at rushing the passer, but then on the back end, so they've been really beat up. They were good in the second half against Seattle because Seattle kind of is just one of the streakiest teams in the NFL again already to start this year, where they look like they're world beaters for 2 quarters and then they can't get a first down for another 2 quarters. But I'm really excited about Odell Beckham in this game on both sides too. I mean, he was not limited at all when he came back, and he ran around an 85% of team dropbacks, 31% of the team targets. If you look at Minnesota, they've allowed top 30 scoring weeks to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf. They've allowed 11 yards per target to opposing wide receivers. It's 31st in the NFL. With this kind of group of ancillary jabronis and this wide receiving core that the Browns have, and this gaggle hodgepodge of tight ends that aren't really that exciting, I think Odell Beckham is an objectively strong play in this one.
Yeah, Hooper and Njoku, Harrison Bryant. I mean, it's hard enough picking like between 1 or 2 tight ends. If they're going to run all 3, it's really hard to play any of these guys. Maybe one falls in the end zone. I have no clue which one it's going to be. Daigle, jump into your thoughts as far as Beckham. And yeah, one of those jabronis was DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He wasn't named, but I figured that's what you were implicating. Maybe like Anthony Schwartz as well too. But it's we know Landry is out, but it's just hard to get excited.
Remember when people were grabbing Anthony Schwartz on waivers?
Was that a thing in season long?
It was.
Oh boy!
But to be fair, like the first couple of weeks, everyone grabs everyone because you usually have
you never know
spots, at the end, and then we have to wait to see like what actually pans out for everyone. But
I spent all my fab on Mitchell week 1. I just went 1,000 all in. How'd that work out for me?
Blowing your fab is the way to go. You just have to worry about it the rest of the way.
Yeah, can't take it with you. You can't pass it down to your children. There's no point in having it. Who cares? I do like Odell Beckham, but I like him as a run back because I really like the Vikings offense in this game. It's a sneaky spot because the Browns unsurprisingly allowed 6.5 yards per play to Kansas City, as everyone does in week 1. And then they actually allowed 7.2 yards per play to the Tyrod Taylor-led Texans, lots of T's, in the first 2 quarters of week 2. But since that time, when Davis Mills took over, 3.6 yards per play in the second half, and then Matt Nagy's tank job last week with Justin Fields. So we still don't know if this Browns defense, although I think they're good, when they were given a chance to be good against league average competition or somewhat above, they were not. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins is top 7 in pass attempts with the 4th highest completion percent in the NFL, getting rid of the ball at the 5th fastest rate from snap to throw, averaging 8.5 yards per attempt with 7 touchdowns and no picks when given time to throw from a clean pocket. And so the double stack here with Odell Beckham coming back is something I am really interested in this game.
You have a preference as far as Jefferson versus Thielen?
I do not. Jefferson has literally doubled up Thielen in air yards, and actually leads him in end zone targets, just 1 more, whereas Thielen continues to get it done with 4 touchdowns. He just seems to never go away. And we know, like last year, the Browns allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. And even though they're top 6 this year, we know Davis Mills and Matt Nagy haven't really given us a chance to gauge that stat. So they could still be poor against wide receivers, which makes Osborne a thinner play as well, since his rate numbers, snaps, routes run on Cousins' dropbacks are the same every week. It's just a matter of who's going to win the whack-a-mole game between him and Tyler Conklin. Last week it was Conklin.
Conklin is kind of sort of one of those cheapies that might make things work from a tight end perspective. I was running some optimals before the show, and it all sort of depends how the week unfolds. If some salaries kind of open up or some cheapies kind of open up, but it was like him and Evan Ingram. If you want some cheap tight ends, I know nobody's enthused, but
the Evan Ingram hype is getting wild. I mean, everyone just looks at his snaps and routes run and everything. He had 2 catches last week, like off career lows and catches and receiving yards per game. And the only season he stayed healthy last year. And I assume that's because Jason Garrett. So like, just because he's out there now, everyone getting the hype for him it's a wild thing to see.
That's the same reason why people are excited about Kyle Pitts, right? Also, he was like a lot of draft equity too, but he's out there a lot.
He is out there.
Yeah. Jump in.
He is the tight end 9 in PPR leagues right now, so good for him.
Oh boy, my 1 season long team. I happen to have him on my team. I didn't reach though, for the record. Nobody cares about my season long team. We'll move on. Hribar, do you have a thought as far as your favorite Minnesota receiver, or is just kind of like 51-49, kind of a coin toss essentially?
Well, I mean, I like Jefferson the most. I mean, he's the one guy that's like a tangible ADOT, and the targets have been there. Adam Thielen's averaged up the targets just 6.8 yards so far to start the year. Not very encouraging. I mean, he doesn't score a touchdown. I mean, you see the low yardage totals and low yards per reception right now. Maybe it changed. So we're only 3 weeks in. So there's stuff that can still, kind of oscillate and swing in his favor. But Jefferson's the guy getting the real targets right now. So he's kind of the guy I would still, kind of glom onto of the guy to be excited about. Steelen's price is still really high too on both sides as well. It's like he's an elite alpha receiver instead of a guy that just scores touchdowns.
And I do wonder if he's going to get lost in the shuffle with like Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Like it's a big receiver week.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kupp soon enough. But the tricky thing is, he's been phenomenal. He's been amazing. He's probably wide receiver 1 in the season, I assume, in season long. But he's expensive now. Like, at least there's some sticker shock where he's never been as pricey as he is. But of course, it's fully justified. We'll talk about that soon enough. Chubb versus Hunt, is it anything more than like a tournament play? It's neither one of them's just getting a ton of usage. They just sort of eat off each other necessarily. It's it makes both of them hard to trust. Hribar, do you have a favorite as far as Chubb versus Hunt? I guess if you think it's going to be on the comeback, Hunt is probably the better play if they're down. Chubb, of course, can always break up that 80-yarder. Who cares? Thoughts?
Yeah, the gift and the curse of the Browns running backs, right? Like when these guys don't score touchdowns, neither of them are very good. Nick Chubb was coming off an 8-game run where he scored a touchdown and finally didn't score a touchdown for the first time in 8 games. And you've seen it was just hollow yardage, the 80 yards, and that's all you get. He didn't have a catch. Hunt has been one of these guys since he's been with the Browns. He's played 19 regular season games with the Browns. And in the 10 games he scored a touchdown, he's averaged 24.8 PPR points per game. And the other 9 games, just 8.6. So it's really kind of like heavy-handed shifts, if these guys get into it or not. If you want to say like maybe the Jarvis Landry injury, which, he only missed last week, was made Hunt a larger part of the passing game plan, which it was. That rolls over, maybe you go there because he matched a Cleveland high of 7 targets and 6 catches. Those were the 2 highs that he had all of last season as well. So maybe that helps him and that stays kind of sticky. But yeah, I mean, these guys, when they don't score, they kind of leave you a little bit of a hollow yardage that you don't really get. Maybe the reception swing in Hunt's favor, but neither one's really going to get pushed 20-25 touches usually, unless it's a little bit inefficient. Like Chubb finally had an inefficient game last week and it kind of added up to some more touches, but they're really tricky guys, especially because Chubb is never cheap.
I guess I'm looking at their go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you knew before the game that the Browns won by 20 points and Chubb had 22 touches, you play him across every site. But without the touchdown, he gets just barely over 9 points on FanDuel, which is insane for his salary.
The Vikings run D is trash though. Like they're 31st in DVOA adjusted line yards on defense. They're good at rushing the passer, but they give up splash plays, and I guess you're going to chase splash plays. There's no splash play runner like Nick Chubb.
He's going to be good leverage if you can get there mentally, because everyone's going to see Odell Beckham's price, and then everyone's going to look to the top where Derrick Henry is, maybe without Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. Instead, everyone's going to look down to pay it running back, since we get JT with a bad price on FanDuel, Sony Michel, Elijah Mitchell, and a couple others. Like everyone's just going to hone in Chuba Hubbard as well. So like Chubb is in that spot where basically no one's going to see him as a good leverage play off Beckham this week.
I'm just thinking I'm looking at their snap count and they don't total over 100% any week. They hit exactly 100 in week 1. Why don't, especially with their shortage of their talent at receiver, what have they? I guess it's not something they want to do, but why not have Hunt line up as like a slot receiver? Is that not something that he can do? I don't know. Just a thought. I guess it's not happening.
Well,
I can't make that happen.
We know Donovan People-Jones and Anthony Schwartz can't do it, so you might as well try something else.
That just seems weird to me. Is Osborne a fraud? Or last week he wasn't very good. He had that big splash play earlier. Is he still somebody that's interesting, kind of sort of someone as a cheap dart? He's still 3-7, I think, on DK.
Yeah, Daigle hit the hit. Daigle nailed it. I mean, like both of their usage for Osborne and Conklin hasn't changed any week. It's just the targets.
Like even last week, Conklin spiked the 7 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown, but he ran a route on 62.5% of Kirk Cousins dropbacks. Whereas the other 2 games, he ran around 63% of Cousins dropbacks. Literally nothing changed except the targets. And I genuinely think it's just him or Osborne every week. And if you're in a spot where you need a cheap receiver in a double stack, if you're playing Cousins, then I think Osborne is just fine. I don't think it's thin at all, especially if, optimizers and everyone's going to come in on Conklin. I think he's great leverage.
Well, that's a good segue. We'll talk about the Carolina versus Dallas. Dallas here is a 4.5-point favorite, 50.5 as far as the total, which feels like a low number for a Dallas game. I'll let you open this up here, Hribar. So what I've seen after 3 weeks, the numbers, like the DVOA is always also talking about Carolina having a really good defense. But of course, you look at their matchups. Is that a product of their defense actually being good? Is it because the matchups have been very positive? And does it matter because Dallas's defense is really good? The offense is really good. So who cares? They're gonna go through anybody.
Yeah, I mean, all of that I believe has some merit of truth to it. I was asked to give my surprise player of the year at Sharp Football this year, and my surprise unit was the Panthers defense. I thought I was really high on them coming into the year, all the young talent that they added, and I thought it was going to come together. And they had a great opening schedule, and they destroyed that opening schedule. Phil Snow has them doing a lot of different things. Last year, they, as from a personnel stance, were forced to just sit back and not really blitz and play zone coverage. Now they're mixing up, doing a lot of different 3-3-5 wide stuff. They're doing a lot. They've been actually blitz heavy to open the year. The problem is you don't really kind of want to blitz Dak Prescott right now. Carolina right now is blitzing the 3rd highest rate in the league, 39%. They pressure the quarterback a league high 48% of the dropbacks, but Dak has actually shredded the blitz this year. So I mean, they might want to dial it back this week. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think that they're good, but they're going to be tested for the first time, because I think one of the big positive things early in the season is Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore's game plans have been really phenomenal to start the year, based on kind of what opponent weaknesses are, really ahead of the tendency of how teams are going to play them. We've seen that happen every week, from the Bucs game in week 1 to the Brad Staley defense in week 2, and then last week, against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, who also just wanted to sit back in zone coverage. So the last 2 teams they played have really kind of just sit back, shell coverage, not really wanting to get beat by the pass, and said, hey, Dallas, we want to run all game. We're not going to put anyone in the, in the box at all for you. If you want to run the ball. And Dallas has said, okay, we're going to do that. So we'll see if Carolina does that. They've been really good against the run to start the year. Like I said, they're going to mix up their looks, be a little more aggressive, not just as one note as the last 2 defenses Dallas faced. So it's going to create a different opportunity, because I don't know if people really will kind of go crazy on the Dallas side, like the passing game. Maybe they will. It's early in the weekend. I don't know. But Dak really hasn't hit a ceiling since week 1, because they've been running the ball a lot. People like to look at those numbers when they pick their players, the red number 32 or whatever that's next to them, and say, I don't know if I'm gonna pay this much for a quarterback. I might not pay this, pay up for Dak Prescott. I wish he was running a little bit, which still hasn't happened, this year, and maybe it won't. But I do think there's some merit to the Panthers defense, because we saw in week 2 against, the Saints, like Calvin Kamara got absolutely nuked. It's one thing when you stop the Jets, and, another when you stop the Mark Ingram led Houston backfield, but they held Kamara to his worst game as a pro. So there's got to be at least a little bit of merit to they're actually good too. So we might see a little more pass volume from Dallas, and a little more, kind of mixed in man coverage that they haven't seen in the last 2 games, that can lead to a lot more upside splash plays and a little more passing aggressiveness. Because Dak's been awesome all 3 games. So if we just get a little bit more volume, we've got a little bit of chance to get the carnival going again.
Daigle, what do you think they want to do, Dallas, as far as their offense? They didn't have to do a ton against Philly, and they kind of ran the ball a good bit because that game was over pretty quickly. They can go with the 1-2 punch of Elliott and Pollard. Cooper, is Cooper a little bit dinged? I don't know. I feel like he's a little bit dinged. He doesn't really have to do anything Monday night.
He played the same number of snaps as CeeDee Lamb like last week. It's just that wasn't the game plan. They didn't use the wide receivers. Cooper 4 targets, CeeDee Lamb 3. They used Dalton Schultz creatively, actually, scheming up plays. Even his second touchdown, I believe it was just 2 guys on one side of the field. Cooper goes left. Dalton Schultz runs right. Whoever takes the safety with them the ball goes to the other guy. And it happened to be safety went with Cooper because, of course, it's Dalton Schultz, and Schultz exploded. So it's just they can literally do whatever they want. Even if you go to the backfield, Ezekiel Elliott has out-touched Tony Pollard 51-35, and Elliott is also second in routes run among all running backs behind Najee Harris. Tony Pollard is 50th overall, but Pollard has still commanded one more target, 8-7 over Zeke. So they literally just do whatever they want. It is a unique game though, since there are a lot of unknowns, not only with Cowboys offense and how they're going to attack, because they have schemed according to the defensive plan, even to have 58 dropbacks in week 1, but then 26.5 attempts over Dak's last 2 games averaging, which is a wild number to think of since he still averaged just under 9 yards per attempt the past 2 games as well, because they're too efficient. So how are they going to attack the defense? And then also you look at the Panthers and what they're going to do. And there's just so much unknown baked in since they've had 10 days rest compared to the Cowboys, who are not only having 6 days rest, but also had a Monday night game, now have the early game on Sunday. And the Panthers are also coming in with an altered offense, most likely, without Christian McCaffrey, without Dan Arnold, who was soaking up 4 targets per game, and then without J.C. Horn on defense. So overall, I'm genuinely not sure what the plan of attack is, but it also wouldn't be surprising if, someone, if not 2 people, explode for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't know who it is. That was the tricky part. Before we jump to Carolina, I want to get both your guys' thoughts as far as this. Like, there's nobody I feel amazing about in the Dallas side, because there's also a lot of options too. It could be Elliott, it could be Pollard, Cooper, Lamb, even one of the tight ends, even Wilson. I suppose he can do something as well. Nobody I feel amazing about, but I think there's plenty of guys in play. Your favorite tournament play, Daigle, on the Dallas side, and I want to get yours, Hribar.
Amari Cooper is going to be rostered quite high on DraftKings, right? Because he's only 6K.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say on a Wednesday night, but we're seeing it looks like a fair bit of ownership projected right now.
I'll go Cooper over CeeDee Lamb still, because I think everyone's still going to come in on CeeDee Lamb.
Hribar?
I mean, listen, man, you run the double. You just double up. You play them both.
Okay.
Yeah. So who do you run it back with on the Carolina side? Hubbard, obviously that's kind of sort of baked in the fact that CMT is going to be out. Is Hubbard going to completely dominate the backfield? Is he going to have enough of the backfield? Royce Freeman is still a thing. He's still a person getting carries in the NFL. What do you have for me, Hribar, as far as the running back situation in Carolina?
Well, after McCaffrey left the game last week, I mean, Hubbard did. He played 73% of snaps. He had every long down and distance snap. He had every 2-minute drill snap, and he had 2 of the 3 short down and distance carries. So it was basically a domination. Now, is that something that is going to happen week or week? We don't know. It'll take a little bit of guesswork, but in replace of McCaffrey last week, it was all Chuba Hubbard. So I mean, that's kind of what we look at. I mean, if you're going to be a road dog, you want to have the guy that's getting all those long down distance snaps and 2-minute snaps. And then, Dallas also has not been good against opposing backfields. I mean, they're 28th in yards per carry allowed to running backs, and they've allowed 14.4 receiving points per game to backfields, which is 29th in the NFL. So at his price, it's a mentally weak play, but sometimes the mentally weak plays are the ones that we make.
He also has proven to be a good receiver. And I genuinely don't think, I don't know for sure, I don't think the playbook is going to change. The production may change since Hubbard is clearly not Christian McCaffrey, but I think they can just run the same scheme, because even in college, he was a proven receiver, averaging 22.5 receptions and 9.5 yards per catch in his first 2 seasons as a freshman and sophomore at Oklahoma State before he suffered that serious ankle sprain in his final year. And those numbers are similar to DeAndre Swift at Georgia as a collegiate player. So he's a very talented individual who can just step right in and do the same plays at least.
The loss of Arnold, does that do anything to the offense? Does that elevate anybody, or is it the limit condense the target tree, or not really? I mean, is Tommy Tremble going to be a thing? That's not going to be a thing, right? It's a fun name to say, and he siphoned a touchdown on the showdown slate. I'm not bitter about that at all. But is he a thing going forward? Is Tommy Tremble a thing?
I mean, I don't know if Tommy Tremble is a thing. Like I said, 4 targets per game. Dan Arnold goes away. I don't know if Robbie Anderson is a thing. Sam Darnold has averaged 35.5 attempts at 8 yards per attempt when he hasn't needed to all year, since they haven't had a play run at trailing, and then they haven't been in a competitive game as they've had one of the easier schedules all season. And this Dallas defense, I think, is getting slightly overblown because they're more of a bend don't break unit, living off of a league high 8 turnovers while being top 3 in yards per play and raw passing yards allowed and only registering 4 sacks to date. So Darnold is currently bottom 6 and percentage of his throws 20 plus yards downfield. But again, he hasn't been pushed by any opposing quarterback or team just yet. So I do wonder if now maybe an increased rate 11 personnel without Dan Arnold, maybe without Christian McCaffrey, we see like more DJ Moore underneath, more Robbie Anderson deep. Like who is the big beneficiary in all this? Although the way it works now in DFS, because everyone's too sharp, like I really do feel like everyone's going to run any double of Dallas players back with Robbie Anderson and hope that he's involved more.
Yeah, he flopped last time out, of course. Well, you mentioned the bottom 6 as far as throwing the ball downfield. I haven't seen this list. I'm going to play the Family Feud game. I'm going to derail the show. Big Ben. Roethlisberger's got to be number 1 on the board, right? Yes, maybe, possibly. Do you have that in front of you?
I'm pulling it up right now. It is none other than Jimmy Garoppolo, the lowest rate. Okay, I'll just go down the list really quick. It's Garoppolo, Cousins, Daniel Jones, Jacoby Brissett's 4.2 yards per attempt, and surprisingly enough, Justin Herbert.
Oh, so not Big Ben. Oh, I just I thought his ADOT was like 3 last game or something like that.
Would you believe that? Would you believe that Roethlisberger has had the highest rate of clean pocket in the NFL?
And he's wasted it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's going nowhere.
How many backup quarterbacks? Honest question. How many backup quarterbacks would be better? Like would be an upgrade or at least a lateral move? Maybe even his own. Like Mason Rudolph for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a lot of talent just like rotting away. Trubisky would be better.
Trubisky would be better. We may talk about that game when we get to the positional plays.
I'm derailing the show. I apologize. You guys got anything else as far as Dallas, Carolina, or shall I move on?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of good. Well, on the Carolina side, yeah. I mean, I think the receivers are fun. The DJ Moore has been smashing. Everyone's excited about kind of him being like a true alpha wideout. His roles kind of changed. They've got religion and are using him as a full field wide receiver. So the strength of schedule has played out really well. I mean, he even avoided Marshawn Lattimore in week 2. Not that it really probably would matter because he's been good against the Saints regardless over the course of his career. But maybe if you look at just the way teams have played against Dallas so far, that maybe they use Trayvon Diggs like Blinky the Red Ghost who shadows Pac-Man. You can get a little bit of opportunity here on Robbie Anderson because the ancillary guys, the secondary wide receivers for teams that have faced Dallas have smashed. Antonio Brown 5 for 121, Mike Williams 7 for 91 and 1. Jalen Reagor even had 5 for 53, even though no receiver popped, but he was thoroughly better than Devontae Smith, who was kind of nuked by Trayvon Diggs in that game on Monday night. So I mean, there is a little bit there for Robbie Anderson. The problem is just, his marriage of role in the offense right now. I mean, his average depth of target is almost double what it was last year. He's been in on 87% of the team dropbacks, but he's been targeted on just 10% of his routes, which is the lowest rate of all of the top 40 wide receivers in route percentage. So maybe you get a squeaky wheel. Matt Rule came out and said they want to get him the football more. But the thing is, his role has to change. He can't just live on the Emmanuel Sanders plan, that you can run into a game like Emmanuel Sanders, and that's fun and it's great if you have him in, but you're not gonna get a lot of targets and convert a lot of targets when you're living at 18.5 yards per target. Ask Marcus Valdes-Scantling how that goes.
And DJ Moore is still DJ Mooring with no red zone or end zone targets just yet.
That's variance or no? That's just who he is.
I mean, he was DJ Moore was a touchdown scorer in college, so I would imagine it's still just variance. But we've been screaming variance for the last 3 years, so I'm not sure yet. Let's give it some more time.
At some point, you are who your record says you are. Right? Is that the saying? All right. Last
he's
of the 3
targets.
games.
It's okay. He's getting all the targets.
Yeah, he's still a stud. Or he'll get 25-yard touchdowns. How about that? Last of the 3 games that we'll feature before we talk about the position by position guys that are not in the feature games is Arizona at the Rams. 55 is the total. It's high. It's reasonably tight. The Rams are 4.5-point favorites. Daigle, open up the side. I don't know if you want the Arizona side, if you want the Rams side. We kind of talked about Kupp and how that price is skyrocketed, fully justified. He separated himself from Robert Woods. Maybe get a little adjustment there. Maybe there's some variance coming, positive variance coming Robert Woods' way. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday night. We don't know the status of Henderson. If he doesn't go, I really don't hope Sonny Michel doesn't run the ball 30 times just to ruin this game. We want to keep throwing the ball. So if you're the Rams, right? It's been a lot of fun and it's been successful. Talking about the Rams, Daigle.
Well, it's been so we have a small sample, but still 3.5 games of Kyler Murray against Sean McVay. I say 3.5 because last year he played little over the first quarter in the final regular season meaningless game. And he's only averaged 3.2 carries in those 4 contests. He exceeded 175 passing yards in just one of those 3 full games he played. But I do think it's encouraging. He's at least providing points in multiple ways this year. Since last year, his rushing made up 39% of his fantasy production, whereas only 29% of his production has come from his legs this year. It's also an exciting game environment because the Rams have averaged 52 points, scoring 27 in every game, combined points. And then while the Cardinals have averaged 56 combined points in their games, scoring at least 31 in every contest. Also, both teams are top 3 in yards per play and yards per attempt on the year. So I think we get some juice from both sides. And we know that now Kyler has a steady underneath option, whether it's Chase Edmonds or Rondale Moore, that they can just move the ball to 4 or 5 different guys at any point.
Rondale Moore, I haven't checked it out as far as his snaps. Is it that adjust or is that still basically the same at around 50%?
He ran 14 routes last week.
What up with that? What's the point? Why even draft the guy?
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on Rondale Moore.
Is that going to change, or is that what we should expect? This week going forward, or what? Have they talked about that, or is that what they're happy with? 14 routes. I'm not happy with that.
Well, I think they're still fine with it. Unfortunately, AJ Green spikes a 100-yard game. Also, even and through 2 games leading, we talked about it last week. Even in leading the Cardinals with 13 targets after week 2, he had run the 6th most routes behind Max Williams and Chase Edmonds as well. And so, we thought, we didn't think. We said, okay, still his spikes games are what we're chasing, and we're still spiking his spike. We're still chasing his spike games. And honestly, we're not even talking about it if he gets in with his carry inside the 5-yard line. So it's just he'll continue to be involved in unique ways. And because he's a great player, he needs to do the best with those opportunities. Sometimes he will, sometimes he won't. It'll be very volatile.
You just got to keep giving AJ Green 80% snaps, I suppose. Got to see what he has here at age 32, 33. I'm not really sure what he is.
Rich can do the spiel on DeAndre Hopkins because his target share is worrisome.
Go for it, Rich.
Well, I mean, he's been hurt the last 6 quarters, so it could be part of that. But the other depth is just playing a lot better. They're getting a lot more out of pieces outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, their offense last year was basically, ISO DeAndre Hopkins on the left-hand side, as X receiver, play 3-by-1. If he was in single coverage, they would, basically jam a slant or come back to him. And actually are running a functional offense right now. The draw's been good so far. I mean, the Rams are running a different defense though now. I mean, this isn't the Brandon Staley defense. I mean, Raheem Morris is aggressive. I mean, they're blitzing a lot more this year, 31% of the time. That's 7th in the league. Teams have only blitzed Kyler on 20% of his dropbacks so far, but he's 14 of 20 with 14.4 yards per pass attempt against the blitz so far this year, with 4 touchdown passes. So I don't know if that's the route Raheem Morris wants to go. I mean, it was against Tennessee, Minnesota, and Jacksonville, but he's absolutely bludgeoned teams that have sent extra defenders at him. We saw that in the Minnesota game when he got shook free and then found Rondale Moore all alone, wide open. So it's not really the same Rams defense that we've seen in the past too. So I think that Arizona will be able to move the football a little bit more. Their point total is 24 right now. I definitely think they hit that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think they're going to move the ball a lot, but I mean, the Rams side is interesting because this is a game too, where like Dean said, I mean, if they want to line up around the football, they're going to be able to. I mean, Arizona, they shut down Derrick Henry in week 1, but then they have just been gashed the past 2 weeks. 176 yards to Minnesota running backs, then 178 yards to Jacksonville running backs last week. It sounds like Darrell Henderson's going to play. Maybe Sean McVay said that he thinks he's going to play, but not 100%. He practiced today kind of in a limited fashion. So we'll have to wait and see. Both guys are pretty cheap, but the problem was you'd rather just know that it's just one guy, right? Like instead of seeing. So the big worry now is that because Darrell Henderson got nicked up, is he going to go back to that 100% snap share he had to start the year? Or is it going to be now kind of more of a shared backfield moving forward? And that for DFS is going to be hard because no one knows going in. We'll know after the fact. So, I mean, you might get a little bit of pull if you take a shot on Darrell Henderson and he does just go right back to the same role he had, or you can get caught holding the bag. So we'll see what happens there. But it is definitely a matchup where the Rams can line up and run the football if they want to against the Arizona Cardinals, which is no fun because we want them to drop back and throw it. I mean, if Tampa would have done their part last week, we wouldn't have had 23 Sony Michel touches in that game. We might have had some more Deshaun Jackson bombs.
Yeah, they just kept on like eventually that was going to work. And it was 3 bombs they threw at D-Jax, and he can still run that. What is it?
And he's wide open on all 3.
It wasn't on him. I was about to say, not his fault. He was wide open.
He's burning every single time. And like Van Jefferson's just like a young version of him, I suppose. He can do the same thing. And that's why would you run I guess it's boring to run the ball.
And neither to McVay, man, to plant that seed. First of all, he hid Deshaun Jackson the first 2 games, and then they just bring him out for this. And now he's going to go dormant again for a while, but every team now that plays them is going to be like, oh shit, we gotta this might happen. Like every time the D-Jax comes in, like we might get the lid blown off of us now. So, props to McVay for 1, hoodwinking me into playing 12% Van Jefferson last week, and then 2, hoodwinking the Buccaneers also, and forgetting that Deshaun Jackson was a thing.
D-Jax was going to break the air yards model. He would have dropped the 3rd one, but that was too good. That was too easy. Is the gap going to close as far as Kupp versus Woods? Like it can't be this drastic as far as the difference in Kupp to Woods, and we've seen it kind of flip flop with Seattle. Different receivers, kind of a different situation. Like what's always been one of those 2 guys. Do you foresee some positive variance for Woods going forward, Daigle? As far as like Kupp is not going to keep, what is he on the pace for 2,000 yards or something ridiculous like that? I suppose that's possible, but it's unlikely. I guess the point is, do you think Woods, who's 5.3K, and Kupp, who's 7.8K? Drastic difference, obviously. Is the gap going to close here? And Woods right now, is he like a value play?
I would think so, but also I can't even quantify it. I mean, we thought Robert Woods was a value play last week, and it turns out it was just a dud. And it's just the same situation this week. I would think Cooper Kupp's 36% target share to Robert Woods' 20%, especially since Kupp only has 1 more end zone target than Woods, despite having 5 touchdowns to his 1. I would think they close at some point, but pinpointing when and whether it's going to close, like I genuinely don't have any way to quantify it for you, unfortunately.
You have a thought on that, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because Kupp's running to just stellar matchups. Even last week, it was just another great matchup. Ross Cockrell's been just absolutely roasted all year. So, I mean, that it just keeps lining up for him. I mean, Arizona doesn't really have anything on the back end we're worried about. Byron Murphy's played well, but he's not going to be in the slot with Cooper Kupp. So, again, advantage Kupp. But yeah, he's not going to end the year with a 36% target share. We do know that. I will bet against that. But as someone that was in on Cooper Kupp, this is a great victory to start the year.
Correct.
54.5 is the total in the game. We like the over, boys?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
every time we get in these matchups, you always try to talk yourself out of the over, but you always end up you almost get there because last week it still got there. It's just the Bucs didn't really do their part until kind of garbagey time.
No, I was right there, man. I could have used a Godwin touchdown at the end. 1 more Godwin touchdown, and we could have been partying. Well, not maybe 5 things. Well, who knows? It would have been. It was a good week. Could have been a little bit better as far as the week, but Tampa Bay, like you said, they were looking ahead to the big revenge game against New England on Sunday night. Is it worth having a conversation about Connor and Edmonds? Like they're playing football and they're playable as 5% darts, I suppose, in tournaments, but we're not excited about either one of these guys, right?
I mean, Edmonds going to get every touch between the 20s. So he's going to come out and Connor's going to get a chance to score a touchdown. That's pretty much it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, both of their guards got hurt last week too, which is something to watch in this game. Because obviously, Aaron Donald is in the middle of the defense
because they have a player named Aaron Donald.
He's pretty good. I've heard good things. Ready to move on and talk about the position by position, and we're done with this game, right? I think we're moving on.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Before we officially move on, we want to talk to you guys about Jock Market. Jock Market, stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. You buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money using real American dollars. Download now for a 100% deposit match up to $50. Use the promo code Grinders. That's GRINDERS. Download Jock Market in the app and Play stores, or check it out at jockmarket.com. That's Jock, JOCKMKT.com, and use the code Grinders for a 100% deposit match up to $50 on your deposit. All right, let's talk about some quarterbacks we did not talk about in the games we featured. I think this is one of the more interesting games of the week there, Hribar. Buffalo, I believe, is the highest team total on the board. If not, it's like, decimal point difference. So Buffalo's going to score, right? We presume they're going to score a fair bit of points, maybe 30, give or take. I don't know if Houston's going to cooperate or not, but how long is Buffalo going to feel like they have to, pummel this Houston team? They love the throw. We saw it last week. And Allen didn't do anything the first 2 weeks, and he was a guy who was kind of buried as far as ownership, but he was fabulous week 3. We talked about Sanders as well, and we'll talk about some receivers too. Like, we really haven't seen the Diggs game just yet. What do we do with Josh Allen this week, basically, is the question. And there is a run back who's been fabulous on the Houston side we can talk about too.
I mean, you play him. I mean, 32-point team total against the Houston Texans. I mean, if they hit that team total, that means that they scored a lot of points. I mean, we always get this with every team, right? Anytime it's super lopsided game, the high score wins, like, well, they'll take the foot off the gas and the game script will be run heavy. Listen, if the Buffalo Bills are going to score 40 points, Josh Allen had a good game. I'm gonna put a stamp on that. Pretty much. I'm gonna say that probably happened. Yeah, I mean, everyone's waiting for Diggs. I think he'll be popular, especially in this matchup. We've all been kind of waiting, especially because, DJ Moore, he had such a good game, and DJ Moore probably could have 200 yards in that game on Thursday night. So we've all been waiting for Diggs, and people are going to go back to, well, there's really nothing to be scared of. All his usage is right in line. He's getting a ton of targets. He's getting deep targets. We're just waiting for the lid to pop off. No reason to be scared. I know you might be a little bit disappointed, but he's also gone 23 straight games with double-digit PPR points. This is the longest streak in the league. So you're at least getting something, man. Like, it's not like you're Allen Robinson out here trying to get 2 catches. But I think you just play Josh Allen. It's pretty simple as that. I'm going to play most of the quarterbacks we talked about already. And then you've got Josh Allen and then the KC Philly game. And I think that's about it.
You run Josh Allen back with Brandon Cooks?
You can. I mean, why not? The target share has been, he's another guy too, though. Like, he's not going to have the share of targets. Like, when we get to week 17 or 18 this year, he's not going to have this target share. There's just no way.
He may not even be on the Texans by then.
You're right. Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point. Daigle, jump in here. Feel free to give your thoughts as far as Allen. One of the games we did not feature that certainly we could have, because but everybody else is going to know about this as well, is the Kansas City Philadelphia game. That is a huge total as well. 2 quarterbacks that are certainly interesting. 2 quarterbacks that have legs. Hurts and Mahomes. Shout out to Hurts for his post-game press conference. I don't know if you guys heard him talking about moving on from the previous game that didn't go so well. It was a fabulous quote. Find that at your own leisure. Yeah. What do you have here, Daigle, as far as anything you want to add on as far as Allen? And I think it's really worth talking about that Mahomes game, a desperate Kansas City team, 1-2 currently against Philadelphia. That feels like a potential shootout as well.
Yeah, and Buffalo still has a league high 108 pass attempts with a lead, a top 11 rate. So they're still more than 50% of the time throwing whenever they have a lead. So I don't even think, honestly, you need to run back Josh Allen. Like, that may be the way to get creative. You just double stack them and move on, because they're just going to throw the ball anyhow. Also, onslaught. Like you said, onslaught with no run back, because it doesn't matter. And like you said, the Chiefs-Eagles game, interesting. I wonder how many people will go Hurts naked with Chiefs run back Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, because I don't think you necessarily need Devontae Smith, even though that would be a player you'd likely go to, because as long as Hurts keeps averaging 8.7 carries per game, he'll get there in any game script. He was the QB 11 overall last week in that just beat down on Monday Night Football. So yeah, him. And then I think Russell Wilson is also an option. Leads the league in yards per attempt with 10.4, and the Seahawks have averaged at least 7 yards per play in all 3 of their games so far.
Do you want to say what's up the chat? I haven't said a little chat just yet. Do subscribe, do turn on notifications. Most of the people that watch this show, listen to it on a replay, but it is nice to have some people lurking. If there's somebody we don't talk about, I'm gonna do my best to throw them out there. It's worth comes up in the conversation. If it makes sense organically, feel free to throw some names out there. We're on quarterbacks now, running backs around the corner. Hribar, give me your thoughts as far as Fields. I'm told Nagy did a terrible job. My understanding, he did a terrible job as far as know your personnel and not understanding the personnel and just sort of the plays they were calling for him. Is he going to bounce back here against Detroit? Is it even worth thinking about, worth considering? It can't be any worse. I didn't watch the game. I just was watching Red Zone, and all I saw was Cleveland in the backfield. Like, every play was Myles Garrett was basically playing for the Browns. He was playing for the Browns, but he was in that backfield sacking the quarterback pretty much every single time. Fields, not good after game 1. Will they adjust?
Maybe. We'll see. Well, first of all, will he start is the next question.
Well, yeah.
Which is the first question, because Matt Nagy seems to be entrenched at Andy Dalton. If he's healthy enough to play, we'll start. I mean, it wasn't all Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy didn't help. I mean, Justin Fields, it's a problem he's had, since coming out of college. I mean, he's a guy that wants to line up and take deep shots. I mean, he's not a check down quarterback. He wasn't that way in college. He's going to stand in the pocket and he's going to look and survey the field pretty slowly and try to move the ball downfield. He had the longest, time in the pocket last week for all quarterbacks. It wasn't just the sacks. So it was both. It was a little marriage of the world. So like I said, Matt Nagy didn't help him. They didn't have any RPO game. That's also something Nick Sirianni's not doing with Jalen Hurts either. It's all scrambles with Jalen Hurts. Like he's doing no RPOs. So, I mean, we've got a couple coaching staffs here not really putting these guys into the best situations that they can be. I mean, it's the Lions, man. The Lions are terrible. If you're going to hit any kind of flop lag, it's going to be here. I mean, they're 31st in passing points allowed per attempt. They've allowed an 8.3% touchdown rate. Like if there's any chance, this would be it. Indoors too. So I mean, oh no, it's in Chicago. I'm sorry. So
yeah.
But I mean, listen, I'm probably not gonna play him and get cute with it, but I think people will play David Montgomery in that game. For sure, because they didn't run the ball. David Montgomery, I think, had 1 carry in the first quarter last week, and then his second carry came with like 6 minutes in the second quarter. So I do think they'll be a little more balanced if they do run Fields back, and regardless, even if it's Andy Dalton. But I mean, I'm probably not going to do it just because it was so bad. We've seen how low the floor can get, and there's so many good quarterbacks we already just talked about. I don't think he'll make my pool.
I see in the chat they're asking about Russell. Do we talk? I don't think we mentioned Russell. We mentioned Russell Wilson. Anybody have a thought on him this week?
Yeah, Daigle did.
I mentioned him.
Oh, my bad. I must have missed it, or John must have missed it.
Yeah, earlier. It's all good. No, I talked about him. I think it's a great spot. Yards per attempt are high, but even Jared Goff went over 330 in week 1. And last week, Aaron Rodgers just absolutely roasted him because their secondary is not good. They're down to whomever they had to start if all their starters got injured. And so it just comes down to a pass rush. And again, Seattle's offense has been one of the best in the NFL thus far by every metric. Russell Wilson's been awesome. It's just a matter of like the defense, which leads me into, I'm going to play host here and transcend into the running back section, because if Elijah Mitchell's healthy, I think it's a really good play. Just having total 38 touches through the first 2 weeks. And then now he gets a Seattle defense that not only allowed, most recently, Derrick Henry to go nutso as the overall RB1, and then Alexander Madison's big day last week, but even Colts running backs in week 1 totaled 198 yards against the Seahawks. So it's a great spot. And I would trust Shanahan, because he did it before, to play Mitchell over Sermon, who looks like Jason Witten, and Juszczyk, who had been in the league for 9 years, and he had a career high 9 touches. Like that's how they dispersed their backfield when it was only Trey Sermon available. So I would actually trust Mitchell, and I think he's a great pivot spot on FanDuel because he's only 200 less than Sony Michel, and also that's where you want to play him for the touchdown equity since he's not going to catch many passes.
Yeah, fast forward to Trey Lance getting like two rushing touchdowns and the 1 yard.
Oh, buddy, like that. I mean, if Trey Lance comes in, Russ is on. It's even more. We got to pick this thing up.
Yeah, he just comes in as like the goal line back, though he plays the role of like Taysom Hill or whatever. And
if he comes in, yeah. If he comes in.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to talk about some running backs. Who else do you have on your list you want to fire off there, Daigle?
Well, I had the Sony Michel pivot. Even if Darrell Henderson, I know we talked about this game, but like if Darrell Henderson's active, I kind of think Sony Michel is a sneaky play. Now, that could easily come back as a complete zero, but we know they hate Darrell Henderson. They have been looking for a way to get off him, citing his injury history in the past. So I wonder if they just like activate him, but then also just don't use them at all and just give Sony Michel the first shot at everything. So I kind of still like playing Sony Michel. Jonathan Taylor's an easy one because he's far too cheap. And we've seen what the Dolphins have done on the ground, or allowed on the ground the first 3 games. But Jonathan Taylor is more of the FanDuel conversation, especially because he still leads the league in carries inside the 10-yard line. And so you just want the touchdown equity. But as we've seen, Nyheim Hines be involved for 13.5 touches in weeks 1 and 3 when Marlon Mack played 0 snaps, healthy scratch last week. It really just comes down to Jonathan Taylor. If Quentin Nelson plays. Quentin Nelson's out, just forget it, even at his price, just fade that. But 2, like, are the Colts going to be competitive like they were in week 2? Because otherwise, because they're not a good team, Nyheim Hines is to come in and play on 3rd downs and split the pass catching role. So I think genuinely playing Taylor, even at his low salary on FanDuel, just comes down to what happens with the Colts offensive line, and do you think they'll compete in this game?
I mean, the Dolphins aren't pulling away from anybody in 2021, are they? I know it's a Jacoby Brissett revenge game, but like, there's only so much revenge that he can do.
The Colts have registered the fewest sacks in the league. Like, they're not even rushing the passer. Jalen Waddle, I'm ruining another pick here. 19 of Jalen Waddle's 27 targets have come against the zone, which we know Matt Eberflus perpetually loves. So, like, it's kind of a really good spot for Miami's passing game, as crazy as that sounds.
If you want to enjoy those 3-yard A-dot passes to Jalen
Buddy,
Waddle.
Jarvis Landry, 15 points, 15 catches is amazing.
Well, you had 5 quarters.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So Henry is going to be popular this week, I presume. Big time favorite against the Jets. AJ Brown is week to week. I presume he's not going to play this week. I don't know what happened to Jones. What happened to Julio Jones last week? Was he benched? Was he dinged?
He had a leg injury.
DMP also. He may not play either.
So they're just going to give the ball to Henry 40 times. Is that the game plan? Is that what's going to happen?
To be fair, he wouldn't have practiced today anyways.
That's true.
Okay. So I've heard different things, and I heard some speculation out there that people thought that maybe Jones was actually being benched and they covered up with an injury. I don't know. I have no idea. But so Derrick Henry seems like a really strong play this week. I think his number as far as total in the sports books is over 100. He's projected to get the DK bonus right out the gate, assuming he gets that 100. Plenty of volume should be there as well. Of course, he's kind of a game script guy, but you have to imagine they're going to be ahead of the Jets because it's the Jets, and the Jets don't really score points. Hribar, do we like Henry this week?
I mean, sure. He's expensive. He's the top running back. Do you usually like the top running back?
Yeah. I mean, it's expensive though. It's worth paying up for. If he doesn't go nuts, and he's also one of those guys where, like, the rule is, like, if he's heavily owned, you're not supposed to play. If he's going to be low owned, you're supposed to play. And, like, that's the general rule.
But is that? Can we throw that out the window now that he's actually catching a couple passes a game? Like, that's the thing.
Is that going to continue going forward? Do we presume that's going to be the thing going forward?
You just said they don't have anyone else to throw the ball to. I mean,
they got Jeremy McNichols.
Yeah, Nick Westbrook. Chester Rogers. Yeah, I mean, it's not pretty, man. So if Julio doesn't play, but
I mean, if he has last week's 18 points, like it's on, like, that's not what you're paying for.
Don't want that.
10-2 for 18 points on FanDuel.
No, I don't want that at all. No, I need more than that. It's just not worth it for me because those funds are precious. We live in the world of a salary cap, and if that's how much you're delegating that way, you want more money on the way back or more fantasy points on the way back. Kamara, do we like Kamara versus the Giants? Who wants to sell me on Kamara?
I mean, this offense, like, Jameis Winston hasn't thrown 23 passes in a game yet. Like, that may not be a good, like, selling point against Kamara, but it's just the fact, like, this offense is putrid. It is very clear their only goal is to keep Winston from turning the ball over and do as much as they can, as slow as they can. And so, like, who am I to say, like, don't start Kamara in a week that no one else is going to roster him? But I mean, even this matchup against the Giants, the way you attack them is through the air, and the Saints aren't going to do that. So I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea what to tell you.
Sean Payton's reaction on that touchdown pass was so amazing.
Yeah.
Jameis he did his best to turn it over. He tried.
Oh, Payton knew. He realized that. He was not happy with them.
That was so weird. But you're a home favorite. 7-point favorite at home. You're only 24-point as far as your team total, and you're on the turf as well. And Kamara is such a big part of that offense. But yeah, that offense is just hard to rely on. But he's got to be in your pool, of course. You mentioned Montgomery in passing. Harris he's not going to get targeted 20 times this week, but if he's going to catch, 7 passes or 8 passes, especially in a 4-point PPR and Big Ben, I suppose they're going to roll him out one more time and dust him off. And
it's so stupid because, like, I wanted to come to this show. I can't now, but I wanted to come to this show on Monday and sell you on Ben Roethlisberger because he's going to go over 300 yards and he's going to have 60 pass attempts because they can't do anything. They literally have to sit him back there and he's to dump it off to Chase Claypool and Najee Harris, and that's it, 60 times a game. And that's the only way they move the ball. And since we don't get the 300-yard bonus anyways on FanDuel, like, you just hope for 3 or 4 touchdowns against a very bad Packers defense. But Roethlisberger in that offense is so bad, I can't sell you on that.
And that game's going to be so slow too.
But Rodgers is going to scorch them. Their team total, the Packers, is 26.5. It's pretty low.
I like the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive line, they don't have any offensive linemen too. That's why.
Sure. Yeah.
We've seen it. It's happened with Aaron Jones a little bit too. I mean, the volume's been there for Aaron Jones, but Now we don't know if Elton Jenkins is going to play, but they know David Bakhtiari's on IR. They lose Corey Lindsley. I mean, they have significant losses on the offensive line. And we've kind of seen that be a little bit of a problem to open the first 3 weeks of the season. But hey.
All we know is that AJ Dillon doesn't matter. That's all we know.
I was told that Washington's defense is good. Was I lied to?
What Santa Claus told you that?
Everybody in the preseason told me they were going to be like, oh, it's the top defense and Young's incredible. But that kind of it's leading to Mike Davis, and he's another guy I always thought. I wasn't necessarily told he was good. I was just told he'd have opportunity. Even that is kind of sort of questionable because of the rise of Cordell Patterson. And then that offense being inept, the combination of those two things. I'm tired of Mike Davis popping up like in stuff that I'm running, and I just don't want to play Mike Davis.
You shouldn't.
You should not. Don't.
I don't want to play him.
If we can't play Kyle Pitts, you certainly can't play Mike Davis.
Mike Davis's snaps have gone down all 3 games. His route participation's gone down all 3 games. He's the quintessential dead zone running back. He was there because people thought he had opportunity, and you realize the fragility of that opportunity when you're not a good player.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Is like skill. Who cares? They're all skillful to some degree. It's opportunity, and it's shrinking, and it's shrinking, and it's shrinking, and also that offense is inept. And I know they're on the turf and whatever, and they're facing Washington, who may not be that good. Who knows? But yeah, I don't want to click on him. It's basically the point I'm getting at. This is me just giving my own pep talk. Do not play Mike Davis.
Just take an X amount, Dean. Right there.
Yeah.
Hit that X.
And it's been the opposite for Kyle Pitts. Maybe that's what this segment should become. Just all the players we're not going to play, even though we like them. It's become the opposite for Kyle Pitts, who's still heavily involved, running around on 83% of Matt Ryan's dropbacks, 14% target share. Without Russell Gage, played his highest amount of snaps as a wide receiver from the outside last week. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all because that offense is so bad, and Matt Ryan may be just as sneakily washed as Ben Roethlisberger at this point of his career.
I saw a blurb that supposedly DeAndre Swift's going to get more looks today, or more touches, more action. He's earned them according to the coach. He looks good, look good. We care about opportunity, all that kind of stuff, but it feels like it's justified. Jamal Williams is kind of sort of like a Mike Davis, just some guy like the stopgap. They sign him for, I don't think they signed up too long, but basically just somebody to have back there. But Swift, in theory, has got to be the one. Is he interesting against the Bears? Of course, now I'm attaching myself to a Lions offense that I want no business to be a part of. But I like Swift's individual talents.
It's not just Lions offense. Like Bears ran 45 plays last week. Detroit ran the past 2 weeks. Detroit has averaged just 60 plays after their 92 play week 1, having the ball for so long since the 49ers just went down every single time they had it. So it's just like, I don't know where the volume will come from with DeAndre Swift as a standalone player. But of course, like on a site like DraftKings, usually we play Swift like against the Ravens because of negative game script. That's what we want. Since this team, the Lions, genuinely don't give up. They play to the final whistle. They have been a threat to backdoor cover if they haven't backdoor covered all 3 weeks so far. And that's why we play Swift. But in a game, who's to say the Bears are better than the Lions? Maybe they're just going to first 1 to 3 wins this one. So I don't know.
That sounds like a fabulous game to watch for sure.
Oh, God. I know, God.
If you're in the Chicago market, get yourself the NFL Sunday ticket or some Red Zone in your life. Do you guys watch Red Zone? I used to strictly watch Red Zone. That's all I'm watching. You guys do other things, or you probably watch film afterwards. But
so a couple weeks ago, Red Zone broke down, and I saw my timeline just going insane. And I cannot believe how many people watch Red Zone. I cannot believe it. How do you understand football? How do you understand the ebbs and flows, like turnovers? Who has short fields? I cannot believe people watch Red Zone. And I didn't realize that's the biggest boomer take. I do not care. I'm not watching Red Zone ever, even though I do support Scott Hansen, just to let you know.
What do you watch? Do you have 3 or 4 different TVs set up? You're watching on one game? What's actually your display?
I don't want to hear #HowRich. It's 2021. Everyone has at least 2 screens. So yes, it's usually 3 games going on at once. You can just bring the TV or program computer down to the basement or whatever you have and just plug them all in. You're fine. Everyone can do it.
Do you and Silva argue about which 3 are going to be on the big board?
Silva ain't wasting his time with the noon games. He's not in that life.
He's not watching the game. Is he going to the brunch mimosas? What's he doing?
He's on Red Zone upstairs. He doesn't care about the noon games because he goes back on Monday and watch the games from his phone. Yes, his phone.
What?
Look,
okay. I have a lot of follow-ups, so we should move on.
You don't question the GOAT's lifestyle. You don't question it.
Hribar, break the tie. Are you team red zone or are you not team red zone? Come on.
Absolutely not. Red zone is trash. I
What?
like Scott Hansen though too as well, but I know I'm not a red zone guy too. I like to watch the games. I like to understand what's going on in the games. I like to actually have a comprehension of like what's happening and the full scope of things.
Red zone is paint
We
by
watch them all.
numbers.
I can get up to 9 when we set up all the TVs. So that's what we do.
You have like
Red
a Hollywood Square setup?
No, we just bring all the TVs into one location with all the boxes, flip a computer monitor, and we're good to go.
Every week you set up 9 TVs? And
No,
you
it's
break
not
it
9
down?
TVs. It's so there's 3 main games. Then there's an extra TV that has the quad box, like it's 701 on DirecTV.
Game mix number 2. Yep.
And then on the streaming side, on the DirecTV streaming, you can quad box again. So you can really hook it up.
Touchdowns don't teach you anything. Like you don't learn anything about fantasy or anything. It's paint by numbers. It's hooked on phonics. You got to.
Yeah, I like to watch the whole game. I like to understand what's going on. Like you watched that Bears game, it was terrible, but.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe if we had red zone for the Bears game, you would have never seen it. So.
That quad box station is kind of sort of like a quasi red zone, to be fair. You're sort of cheating. You're getting best of both worlds if you have that channel on. No?
Okay.
We're watching the whole game.
This is blowing my mind. We got to move on. Obviously, talk about some receivers. I'm going to make a poll on Twitter because I cannot believe I can't.
Oh, it'll win.
Red zone.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. You guys concede you're losing at this.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, of course, because everyone. But again,
because everyone's simple.
yeah, everyone. This is why the offseason is filled with just player spin. No one can do anything beyond player stuff because like everything else involves too much nuance. It's too much.
This is why you quit playing RPGs, Dean.
Well, I stopped at Final Fantasy 4, I believe, or maybe it was 5. I don't recall. But yeah, look, if it didn't happen on Red Zone, it didn't happen, as far as I can tell. We got to move on and talk about some receivers. Daigle, what do you have as far as some receivers that we haven't talked about just yet? We kind of mentioned Diggs in passing. We talked about the Woods and Cup scenario. Deebo Samuel seems kind of sort of somewhat interesting. He's going to be all of a sudden the thing. Devontae Adams is an absolute stud against Pittsburgh, as always. Who's jumping out for you as far as the receivers?
Yeah, a couple cheapies. I already mentioned Jalen Waddle. I also like Michael Pittman, 32% target share in both of the past 2 games. I think Corey Davis is a really good play this week because not only have a Titans defense, but also we finally get to see what this Jets offense is. And it may still be a burning hunk of garbage, but their first 3 games have literally been, both on paper and in the numbers, the hardest schedule in the NFL, and opening against the Panthers pass rush and then playing against Belichick, a rookie quarterback fed to Belichick essentially in week 2. And then last week, Broncos home opener in altitude. Now this is going to be the easiest test the Jets have had yet. And they don't have Tyler Kroft, most likely, or Elijah Mitchell, who's still going through the concussion protocol. So whether I have Henry in my lineup or not, I don't know. I think Corey Davis is an amazing run back that's going to come in vastly underlooked, even though we have no idea. Again, we don't know what this Jets offense is.
I don't feel so dirty, kind of sort of recommending a Lion now that you kind of sort of somewhat recommend a Jet. So we're even. Is there a Dolphin you want to talk about?
You did.
Well, did you want to throw out a garbage player or a decent player on a garbage team? You want to add to the conversation?
Nah, Reeves could take all the good players. Like, I mean, it's not hard to say, like, play Devontae Adams over Tyreek Hill. I will say, like, I want to get away from Cooper Kupp on FanDuel, given the 8,600. That's a wild salary since Adams is still commanding more and more targets as we move along. Like, even Valdez-Scantling went back to his typical 12% target share this past week as a boomer bust player. So yeah, I would just want to get away from Kupp on FanDuel.
I mean, that 58% target share will shrink everyone else's.
In the chat, Crafty Mouse says, Red Zone is 7 hours of no ad wonderfulness. How can you not like it? Red Zone is the greatest creation in the history of the world, according to Neil. Yeah, and also they said, you essentially have Red Zone when you have the quad, like I was saying, you have the quad box. That's kind of sort of something. That's a cheat. Well, fair enough. Whatever. We'll move on. But we're going to make a poll on Twitter. Hey man, I don't want to see the Jets like ever. Like I was angry. You know, the 405 game last week was like the Dolphins and the Dolphins and the Raiders.
Which got hot the last 15 minutes.
Game was fun.
Yeah.
But once it's 425, I don't want to see that team at all. I don't want to see that game at all. I want to see the good ones. I want to see the Rams.
You're trying to miss Peyton Barber carries.
Yes.
He looked pretty
I've
good
seen
last
enough.
week, actually.
I've hit the quota in my life in Peyton Barber carries that I want to see. Yeah, obviously, Tyreek Hill is a really, really good play. He's always a really good play.
Is he?
Yes. Well, do you want to tell the people why? Hill is good.
Well, I mean, is he though? I mean, that's if they're not going to do things that they did last year. I mean, they're playing another team that's all zone based. Like the last, two teams that they played. They're going to go. The Eagles are just going to sit back and play zone and make you either run the ball or do something different with Tyreek Hill. And the Chiefs haven't done that with Tyreek Hill the past 2 weeks. They did it at the end of last year. So let's see if they, get religion on kind of moving him around like they did at the end of last year. But the last two teams have literally just said like, hey, we're going to play zone, sit back. We're not going to blitz. We're just going to play over the top coverage and not let Tyreek Hill go downfield. And the Chiefs haven't.
Did you guys play Hollywood Marquise Brown last week by chance? Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't get there. I got off, even though I did like that game a whole lot. I went elsewhere, but it's still, everyone complained about the drops. I understand being aggravated, but I just see it as, and I didn't have him, so it's easier for me to say this, but I just see it as a receiver getting open with ease 3 times, not just a drop 3 times. So he'll be fine.
I just thought it was worth pointing it out because we haven't mentioned a thing in that Baltimore-Denver game. It's happening. I don't know if people are going to be caring. And Lamar Jackson he's going to be the quarterback people just totally ignore this week. But for sure, he can run off 100 yards in the ground. That's something he can do. Is there any interest in this game in tournaments here, Hribar, as far as going back to Brown? Watkins is kind of sort of been a thing to some degree. Even Andrews had his moments last week too. Or is this like a game that if you're running 100 lineups, sure, but otherwise probably a game you don't really want to focus on.
Yeah, if you're doing 150, I mean, he's not good. My quarterback pool, I always keep it usually a max 4, so I don't think he's going to make it. The Denver's had a really great draw defensively. They're probably somewhere, a little bit less what they are, but probably inherently a good defense. I'm a little bit worried about the state of the Ravens offensive line, which has been a problem so far. We don't know if Ronnie Stanley's going to play. Lamar has been pressured on 40% of his dropbacks. He's got a 45% completion rate, 6.5 yards per pass attempt under pressure, as opposed to 70% completions and 10 yards per pass attempt and kept clean. So, I mean, pressure has been a real problem for him. If are they able to get home, able to protect him? Definitely the outs there. If you're in, he's going to be low rostered, and he has the rushing ability. But he's only had one good game out of the 3 so far. He's only had one QB1 scoring week. So he hasn't really had the high ceiling except for the one game, which was a Sunday night game, and we didn't even get to use it on the main slate.
John in chat's asking about Ridley, who's been kind of sort of okay, but not elite in any game, getting a fair bit of targets. Daigle, do you like Ridley this week? If you want to extend that to Pitts, by all means, go for it.
Reeves, you can talk about Ridley. I know you tweeted in depth about him earlier this week.
Well, I would like for his price to really kind of significantly drop. I mean,
to represent his play.
I mean, he's what, 72 on FanDuel, and he's 7. I mean, he's still being priced as a top 10 guy. I equate it to very easily, just kind of what we've gotten from Allen Robinson the past 2 years. A guy that's really not in a great environment. It's getting a high target share and still is a good player. There's a floor there still too, but how often will we have those spike ceiling weeks? He'll have a few still, but his ADOT's been cut in half. Was it 9 yards right now? It was 15.2 last year. He's not getting any of the deep targets because this team is very 2020 Steelers-ish. A lot of quick. Their offensive line is bad, man. I mean, there's something it's hard to quantify offensive line play for a lot of people that use data, and I use a lot of data, but I'm very cognizant of when you have a terrible offensive line, it impacts your offense, and that's happening in Atlanta right now. The interior of that offensive line is absolute garbage, and they can't throw downfield because of it.
They also have a quarterback that can't move. The combination of those two.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Pittsburgh. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's been you talk about the clean pockets, and he's been blitzed the lowest rates because no one has to send any pressure. They're just throwing 6-yard passes. You can't get pressured when you throw the ball in 2 seconds and wide blitz, and we'll just sit on these 6-yard routes. Why send extra defenders? Well, we're just wasting that. And that's kind of what we're getting a little bit with the Falcons to start this year. But yeah, I equate it very similar to Allen Robinson. I want the price to go. I would say this in season long takes. I would still be all about, if someone wants to dump Calvin Ridley, I'm going to take him because the target volume is there, the floor has still been there, and you'll still run into some touchdowns touchdowns and spike weeks. Whereas like now Allen Robinson actually is like a true floor, like a 0 floor. Ridley's not doing that. So it's very similar to like the maybe they turn this around, man. It's, typically like the early season ADP still is a big indicator of full season projections at this point in the season. So we don't want to really bury like everybody after these 3 games.
Robinson Dean has 86 yards on 21 targets, and I can't even make him a bust for the 2021 Prayer Yards Hall of Fame because Andy Dalton hasn't thrown a single ball 15 yards downfield. At least he deserves that, and I can't do that for him.
I know the season-long guys are freaking out about Robinson, but wow, you said 21 targets and 86 yards? That's
Correct.
An insane. I know it's like early, but that's an insane stat. That's
insane is one word for it.
Yeah. Do you have anybody else, Daigle, you want to feature as far as receivers, or feel free to jump to tight ends?
That should be it about me. I'm surprised that Devin hasn't kicked us out yet, to be quite honest.
He's just enjoying himself. He's chiming in the chat. He's talking about what I wonder if Devin watches Red Zone or not. He's curious why it's so polarizing. He was not aware.
No Red Zone for me. I pick and choose my games.
Well, do you not pay like the $5 more a month for the cable package? Is that what's going on there? Is it
no. I'm a streamer only guy, so.
Well, there you go.
No
Stream the
packages.
Red Zone.
No packages for me. No, I'm just sweating baseball back here.
All right, fair enough. So am I. I'm trying to pretend like it's not happening. And people listen.
Is baseball still happening?
It is. It is still happening.
Dude, every night, Silva. Oh my God! All he does is watch every single game. It's ridiculous.
Is he a White Sox fan?
Cubs, but now he's very don't even get me. He's very angry at the Ricketts family for trading everyone for the Cubs, and he complains about it literally every night.
I love it. You gotta like secretly record one of those and like bring it on the show one of these weeks.
Oh my God, he wasn't yelling, but he was arguing with a ticket salesman the other night that called him. I was like, that poor woman just wanted to punch the clock and eat her ham sandwich, and she got ferociously argued with.
Do you want me to renew my season tickets when you trade Anthony Rizzo? Does it sound like something like that?
Very similar, yeah. A few other vulgarities thrown in, but yeah.
All right. What do you have for me? Who wants to lead into the tight ends before we step us out and get out of here? We've talked a lot. Devin's got he's got some baseball to sweat, but who's got some tight ends to talk about? Tight end, always a fabulous position to feature, and this never fails. Anybody want to chime in with Kittle or Kelsey or Pitts or Ingram? Anything exciting as far as tight ends this week? Not everybody at once.
I mean,
jump in here.
Kelsey's just so affordable on FanDuel. Like, why would you go anywhere else? Like, it's a pick'em game there, and you can afford to jam him and Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill in your lineup and still spend up at quarterback if you're spending down a receiver. The sacrifice you need to make. That's why it's not even about positions. It's about structure in FanDuel. So, like, if you're spending down at running back and not going to 10-2 Henry, that's how you afford all these guys. And cheap-wise, like, no tight end scores touchdowns besides Kelsey. So it's just like so hard to go elsewhere unless you're just praying for the lottery of 2 TD Dalton Schultz like last week. I mean, it's literally the 7th ring of hell. It sucks.
So the thing is, as a general rule, I speak in general rules here, FanDuel, you're more likely to have the money to spend it for tight end. DK, you're more likely not to have the money for tight end. That's just one of the way how the sites works, how the builds work.
But then you spend down and you get your 1 point and you're like, yeah, of course I got 1 point.
Yeah. I mean, again, I run the optimals again on a Wednesday night, and 55% Evan Ingram on DK, 13% Conklin, 17% Kittle. The difference here is FanDuel's giving me 48% Kittle and 40% Kelsey and 11% Pitts. Like all of them, because you have the money in FanDuel and you don't have it on DK, and that's that. Like that's just how it works. What do you have?
I mean, well, and DK's pricing for the punt tight ends is different on FanDuel's. Like it's harder to punt tight end on FanDuel because like of the way the salaries are set up. Yeah. So I mean, you can, and DK has always been, you can play sub 3K tight ends if you want. You could play Cole Kmet against the Lions for 3K if you want. Evan Ingram's 3K. If you want, your boy Tommy Tremble is 2.5K.
Not my boy.
I mean, what's Conklin's 3.5? I mean, yeah, you can punt there, and it's a position that you can punt and get away with. Whereas FanDuel, like you get to still pay like 4 or 5 for those guys, and it's like, oh, like that's gross, man. Like you have to pay up a little bit for them because of that.
3K on DK is so much more of a salary saver than 4 or 5 on FanDuel. It's just the way it's so much more condensed as far as
it's huge. It's huge.
You had a thought, Daigle.
Well, I'll just say cheapy wise also, besides some of the ones that Rich named on DK, if you want to go down. Dawson Knox, this is where we've come to, is very interesting because it's not only his target share, but his routes run the past 2 games. He's up at the elite 80% of Josh Allen's dropbacks barrier. And like their backup tight end has only ran 5 routes the past 3 games. Like Dawson Knox is just uncontested. So you just hope for a touchdown if you're spending down there. Also, Noah Fant's interesting because Teddy Bridgewater has targeted his tight ends at the league's 4th highest rate, and we don't know the trickle down without KJ Hamler. Everyone assumes, Cortland Sutton for downfield targets, but given the volume that Noah Fant's already getting, maybe he's the one. And he's only like 700 more. He's only 4,300. And for a player of Noah Fant's ceiling, that's pretty reasonable if you get some pushback from the Ravens offense.
We're going to George Costanza and on a high note, seeing some tight ends thrown out here in chat. I'll let you have the last word here, Hribar. Pick any one of these guys you want to talk about. Disley may kind of sort of possibly have a chance to be a thing if Gerald Everett is out with these currently in the COVID list. The one who Knox is thrown out there as well. And then Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki, this is what we're looking at. Mike Gesicki,
I mean, you buy into the Brissett Gesicki battery. I mean, he had the 12 targets last week. So, I mean, I don't know how sticky those will be, but he was the foxhole guy for Brissett last week.
Yeah, there's the rousing endorsement. There it is. We do appreciate you guys sticking with us.
No one wanted to bring up Jack Doyle.
Doyle, yeah, not since like 2017 or maybe 2018 since they've rostered Jack. I just can't.
Pat Fryermuth. No one wanted any Pat Fryermuth.
I have a friend who he's like, he's like, oh, all my Steeler friends love Fryermuth. He's the next like Heath Miller. Of course, he's the next Heath Miller. But like, I can't get excited. I know he scored a touchdown last week. Whatever. I suppose he's kind of sort of somewhat potentially a dart, but it's hard to get excited about any of those tight end that nonsense outside the top 2, top 3. We do have to step aside and get out of here. We do appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. As always, again, everybody knows who Rich is. Everybody knows who John is. In case they don't know, Rich, where can they find your content?
Yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com, at Lord Reeves on Twitter with you guys every Wednesday. I like that. Let's incorporate the chat a little bit more. Be active, chat.
Well, don't be active with Will Disley. Be active with somebody else.
They threw out Higbee. Does that make it a little bit more exciting? Yeah.
Well, he's actually good, though.
He was a good play last week. He's a good play this week. Yeah.
Daigle, where can the people find your content? Tell them about your good football podcast.
At NotJDaigle on Twitter if you want more of these takes, and then a good football show on both iTunes and Spotify. For a full feature DFS breakdown, we do our show, me and Kyle Dvorak, Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, and it hits the feeds if you don't have time to watch it live, because who else besides me is sacrificing their life on a Friday evening? Hits the feeds on Saturday morning if you want that. Also, my waiver column, if you're in the redraft streets, goes up every Tuesday morning, and I edit it throughout the day. Also do a chat on YouTube and Twitch. I'm basically doing 7 shows a week. If you need something, just show up and ask.
Do appreciate you guys watching us live. Yeah, most of you guys watch us in the replay, but yeah, this is the benefit. If you watch us live, we can interact with you in chat. Makes it a little bit more fun. Feel free to like, subscribe. Oh, and it's 9:00 on a Wednesday. If you aren't aware, you probably don't know if you're watching us on the replay. 9:00 Wednesday night. We're here. Rotogrinders.
Remember, red zone is bad.
No, that is the worst. That is such a bad take. It's so good. It's the greatest invention since I don't know, PlayStation.
I just thought
5.
we might as well let it burn in week 4. Why not?
I'm gonna tilt. That was Rich. That was John. This was the NFL Pick 6 show. Thanks for watching. I was Dean. We're out of here. Oh.